You know what's cool? Castlevania. What a great franchise. Well, maybe not so much some of the 3D entries. I know that there are fans of them, but for me, I prefer the 2D Castlevanias. There's just something about them that is just so enjoyable, so timeless, so challenging, yet so groundbreaking. The enemy designs, the characters themselves, the stories told within it, the level layouts. Whether you like the classic Castlevania style, left to right, or the Metroidvania style of the genre, there are great Castlevania games for everyone to enjoy. And although we've gotten lots of compilations recently, Konami, well, they haven't really done much with the franchise except for a Netflix series. Now, the Netflix series has become very, very popular. Konami themselves seem to be returning to form a little bit. Things like Silent Hill 2's remake seem to be doing very well. Of course, you have Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is Metal Gear Solid 3 coming out supposedly in 2025. So Konami seems to be a bit on a high note right now. And some people are wondering, pretty much Spawn Wave, is Konami back? Well, with this new news that is circulating out there about a potential new AAA Castlevania game, I think the time might be near to acknowledge whether or not Konami is truly back. But before we get into all of that information, I want to give a huge thank you to today's video sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by Nixie and the Nixie Flexi controller, the wireless controller for your PC, Nintendo Switch, Android, iOS, and much, much more. Longtime viewers of the channel will remember me talking about Nixie products before, and for good reason. They make high-quality gaming peripherals with cutting-edge performance. The Nixie Flexi is a really cool wireless controller that has a lot of customization you can do with it. You can actually swap out where the D-pad and the left joystick are, or the A, B, X, Y buttons to tailor suit your needs if you're used to different sorts of layouts on controllers. It's got high precision control and a lot of durability. You can program different buttons on it. There's 4 programmable buttons on the back of the controller. It features vibration and a turbo feature as well. You can also customize the LED lighting on the controller to suit your preference with a wide range of colors to make it more so tailor-suited to your gaming experience. And I mean, the controller works great. I've used it on my Switch, I've used it on my PC, playing an emulator here where I am Jake the Snake Roberts beating up Rick Rude because Rick Rude painted my wife's face on his tights, and I don't like that and I don't respect that. We need to beat up Rick Rude, and what better way to do it than with the Nixie Flexi controller? So what are you waiting for? Click on the link in the description box or pinned comment in the comment section down below and check out the Nixie Flexi, your new all-in-one controller. I mean, how freaking cool is this? You can switch out the freaking D-pad and analog stick like that easy. Like, that's awesome, dude. That is super cool, especially when you're jumping between different setups for different controllers. I'm going to give a huge thank you to Nixie for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to support the brands that support me, and check out the link in the description box down below. All right, so this is essentially stemming from a website called Geeking Out. It is a Portuguese website, and I'm not quite sure about their track record, so take this with a bit of a grain of salt. However, there are lots of other websites that are now starting to report this news, so I'm just kind of basing it off of that. I figure if other people are talking about this, there should be a valid reason as to why, and nobody's really questioning it in the initial Reddit thread that I saw on this topic, so I'm guessing there is some level of consistency with this website and basically what they are saying. But essentially what they say in this website is, although, you know, Netflix has been doing Castlevania stuff, Konami themselves haven't, but Geeking Out has learned from sources with knowledge of Konami's plans that a new AAA Castlevania game is in development and will be officially announced in 2025. So when you hear AAA, you kind of go, oh, well, probably a 3D game then, right? But I'm not so sure about that. You know, that's where a lot of people's minds are going with this. But when I think of AAA Castlevania, like, does anyone think of a 3D Castlevania? Or do they think of the 2D Castlevania games that were indeed AAA? You look at something like Symphony of the Night. Symphony of the Night came out in an era of games, which was 97, on the PlayStation 1, when everyone was going 3D. 3D was the big thing. 3D was the thing that everyone wanted to achieve. But Castlevania Symphony of the Night stuck with the 2D formula, increased it to the Metroidvania formula, where it was, you know, the big castle and you got to search it, and then of course something happens and you search the other part of the castle. But that game was a 2D game in a 3D world and was extremely successful. It was a million-plus seller on the PlayStation, one of the highest rated games on the original PlayStation, and it was a 2D game. In my opinion, the best Castlevania games have always been the 2D games, whether we're talking about Symphony of the Night, Dawn of Sorrow, you know, the Metroidvania style stuff, or you want to go to Super Castlevania 4, Castlevania Rondo of Blood. Like, all of the great ones were 2D, so I don't think that AAA necessarily means a 3D Castlevania. Because when you look, Nintendo released a 2D AAA game with Super Mario Wonder, and that game was very successful. That game was critically received well. That game was commercially received well. A lot of people bought it. It sold very well. So why can't a AAA Castlevania game be a highly polished 2D Metroidvania style? Look at Metroid Dread. That was a AAA game. It didn't sell 3 million in a year, but it almost did. You guys almost brought it to that 3 million number in its first year. I'm very proud of you. You know, less than 3 million Metroid fans that are out there that bought it in the first year. But, you know, factoring that in, this would more than likely be a multi-platform release. So being able to be on multiple platforms would definitely help Konami with their sales figures of this. Now, why do I think this would be a Nintendo Switch 2 game? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. When you look at what has been successful for Castlevania, when you look at how Konami has announced new games for their properties at things like Nintendo Directs, I think this Castlevania game is 100% coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 if it is indeed development, because of the fact that, well, the Castlevania collections, where did they sell best? They sold best on the Nintendo platforms. Like, I don't even think it was close as far as the splits were concerned. People still assimilate and associate. People say I use the word assimilate wrong, and I might have just used it wrong there, but I don't really care. You know what I'm trying to say. People associate Castlevania with either Nintendo or Sony, but they only do it for Sony because of Symphony of the Night. Nobody is associating Castlevania with Lords of Shadows and Lords of Shadows 2, like, oh, these are the best games ever. No, they are classic Castlevania games. The last two Castlevania collections were announced at a Nintendo Direct, the Advanced Collection and then the Dominus Collection. Now, you could say, well, those games were Nintendo games, so why wouldn't it be there? I mean, that's a fair point. I can't really argue with that. I guess the only thing I could say is that those games were still multi-platform releases. Those games still came out across multiple platforms. So technically speaking, they could have been announced at a State of Play, at a Developer Direct. It didn't have to be at a Nintendo presentation. It could have been on a, you know, PlayStation presentation or an Xbox presentation. When you look at how this is a new system coming out that's, you know, more powerful than the standard Nintendo Switch system, AAA Castlevania, a 2D AAA Castlevania is right at home on the Nintendo Switch 2. You put it on the other platforms because it would be a multi-platform release. But as far as the marketing is concerned, you hammer it home with Nintendo fans, and they will go out in droves and buy this game. I would buy it. Now, would it sell as good as Metroid Dread did in the first year? I'm not quite sure about that because of the fact that, you know, Metroid is a bit more of a popular franchise right now than Castlevania is. But the whole thing is, I don't think you make a 3D Castlevania game in 2025 and expect it to sell, you know, 5, 6, 10 million copies. I think you do a AAA style game, but within a reasonable budget. When you look at how Konami is handling these newer games that they are putting out, Silent Hill 2 Remake, you know, high risk, low reward situation. Metal Gear Solid Delta, a remaster to some degree. I mean, it's the same game as Metal Gear Solid 3, just with better visuals and increased physics and, you know, new control options and stuff like that. Once again, a low risk, high reward situation. Your AAA Castlevania doesn't have to be, you know, 3D Lords of Shadow 7 or whatever number they're on right now. You do a highly polished Symphony of the Night style game. You know what? Do Symphony of the Night 2. Just do that. Make it multi-platform, announce it with the Nintendo Switch or for the Nintendo Switch 2 at this upcoming Nintendo Direct, and you are stealing people's hearts. You are stealing people's hearts. So I hope this is all real. Like, if it's not real, like, that's going to be a bit of a disappointment. But, you know, it makes sense. Konami is trying to do a bit of a comeback. I think we can all sort of agree on that. They are starting to take gaming more seriously for the first time in quite a while. There has been some decent success stories. Obviously, it would kind of matter who's developing this. It could be Mercury Steam. And Mercury Steam, of course, does 2D Metroid games. And they did the Mirrors of Fate game on the 3DS, which I loved. And I don't care who knows it. I thought that was a good game. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comment section down below. How are we feeling about this? Do you think that there is something to this? Do you think that this makes sense for Konami to do? Do you think it makes sense for them to put it on the Switch 2 as well? Because I sure as hell do. Like, if this didn't come out on the Switch 2, like, Konami's just stupid. Like, they're not back. It's same old Konami, because I'm telling you, it'll sell better on the Switch 2 than it will on any other platform, by far. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.